Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is a big deal. We are a big deal, and it's a big day here in Internet Radio. You're listening to 87 Sports Fans live on Late Night Sports Radio. This is the NBA Preview Show. Joining me here, as usual, is my co-host, debonair, Mr. Steven Taylor. How are you?
Yes. What's up, man?
Welcome back to the program, everybody. And now we have two special guests to help us talk hoops. We figure the Royals are dead, so we might as well move on to basketball. Joining us is Bob Sullivan, host of the Bob Sullivan Show here Sundays and Thursday nights on Late Night Sports Radio. And also Jabari Davis from BasketballInsiders.com. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Enthusiastic as always, Bob.
Absolute pleasure. I was letting Bob go first, but yeah, thank you for having me.
Smart move, Jabari, letting Bob set the bar low, and then you can just kind of jump over and look like the golden boy.
You know, Keith,
I've
this is
known
going
him
to be
for a
a
while.
first tonight.
Why?
This is going to be a first because for the first time in a while, we have more contributors than listeners tonight on the show.
But boom. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been saving that all night. Thank you.
Thank you. There's
That's always fun. I'm a big fan of that type of radio show.
Well, there's a lot of questions to answer, and apparently Byron Scott doubts Dwight Howard's drive. I love the fact that the Lakers' new head coach is mixing it up. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's talk about the Western Conference, shall we? And let's start with the division that hosts or is home to the NBA champions, the San Antonio Spurs. And that would be the Southwest Division. So the New Orleans Pelicans, Dallas Mavericks, the Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, and the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, to me, this is a division that is a lot closer after San Antonio than everyone probably would feel like. I always think like New Orleans has a shot to do something, and then I remember Tyreek Evans is on that team. Well, I don't know. What are we looking at for this division? The Spurs again, easily, or you think there's going to be some contenders here?
Jabari, I'll let you take it first.
Well, I don't mean to be anticlimactic. I do think the Spurs are going to be, are going to rise to the top in that division. But, you kind of hit it on the head. It's a lot closer, especially after them, than most people are giving credit. I'll take your Pelicans. You referenced the Pelicans and my boy Tyreek. I understand, the reservations there. Obviously, you just never know what you're going to get out of Tyreek Evans, as well as Eric Gordon. You never know how healthy they're going to be, and for that matter, out of Drew Holiday. But now that they are all fully healthy, it's not that I'm instantly putting Monty Williams on the clock, but I will say the expectations are a heck of a lot higher than they have been there, in recent years. You got a budding young star. Whether and it depends on who you talk to, whether you consider him a star or a superstar. Who knows? But in terms of being an all-around great player, you can count me on that bandwagon for Anthony Davis. I know that that's been annoying some people with how much attention he's gotten this summer. But like I said, count me in. I think the kid is a real deal.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, but especially the I know it's a different world over in international play, but he really seemed to set himself apart from everybody watching him play. But I think the big acquisition for the Pelicans is Omer Asik. It's another big body down under. Davis can get his, we know that, but after that, you need some heat down there height. I meant. To be able to corral rebounds and defensively, I think that those two underneath are going to be as big of impact as anybody in this league.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and pardon me, I should have even mentioned that because that makes it the game just that much easier for Anthony Davis. At times in the past, over his first couple of years when he was the primary post defender, I won't say he got lost, but, as he's continued to develop from a physical perspective, and you mentioned the international play, I saw him in Vegas, and obviously I was watching him, throughout that tournament. He is physically bigger and stronger than he once was. And you add in a guy like a Seek, a guy that, with some size, with strength, that can, clean up on the glass, that can also provide, provide post presence. It makes it so that Anthony Davis can actually roam a bit more and have even more of an impact on the defensive end. So now I'm very excited about that team.
And look, for me, looking at at this division, by far probably the best division in the NBA. But as far as the Pelicans go, they're probably my Orlando Magic of the East or of the West. Where I'm a big fan of what they have, but it might be a little too early to count them in. They're going to have to count a lot on Anthony Davis, who a lot of people are saying is the next Duncan, an athletic version of Duncan. But the rest of this division, Mavericks are better. The Rockets are going to take a step back. I don't think people are, factoring in how much this Harden, Dwight Howard combination. I think them thinking that they're so much better than the rest of their team and how they should have separate rules. You can think that, but for them to go out and say that and then criticize Parsons, who was actually a pretty big piece of that puzzle last year, they're playing with fire by, acting like they're high and mighty. And then the Grizzlies, they're just going to grind away, find a way to make the playoffs, and they're going to cause trouble in the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to the Western Conference Finals, but they'll cause trouble. I'm going to go Spurs 1, Mavericks 2. I'll go Grizzlies 3, Rockets 4, Pelicans 5 in this division.
See, I'm going to kind of agree with Bob on this. I think the one thing about the Pelicans, and the one thing that I've noticed with a lot of teams in the league, is they have a lot of talent. They have crazy talent. But it just seems like in the NBA nowadays, unless you have that veteran leadership, especially when it gets to the postseason. I mean, we were discussing the Atlanta Hawks before the show started. Over the last 5-6 years, they've had some truly talented teams, but they've had a lot of youth. They've had a lot of athleticism, but they didn't have that gritty veteran leadership like you see a team like the Spurs or even the Mavericks. And you could even possibly say the Rockets, even though they're still pretty young, but Howard and Harden, they do have experience under their belt. I think that does go a long way, especially in this league the way it is now. I mean, they might get their wins during the regular season, but when it comes to the postseason, I just don't see them doing too much. I'm going to agree. I think the Spurs are definitely going to be number one. I don't know if Houston's going to take that big a step back. I was actually going to say Memphis 2, Houston 3. I'm going to say Dallas might take a little bit of a step back this year. I'm just not too blown away with what I've seen so far in the preseason. And then New Orleans, I'm going to pick to finish last.
Oh my! You're taking the Mavericks to take a step back. They almost beat the Spurs in the first round last year. I mean, they lose Vince Carter, but they bring in Chandler Parsons, and Tyson Chandler. You got, depth at point guard. How deep you want to say with Raymond Felton, being your third point guard. I think that's pretty good. And Monte Ellis was very efficient last year. If he can match what he did last year, which, with him, he's not competing with another guard where he thinks he has to be better than the other guard. He is the best guard on that team. So it takes a lot of pressure, self-inflicted pressure off of him. I think the Mavericks definitely take a step forward in this division.
Well, let's not forget that Raymond Felton is so fat. He's the third and fourth point guard.
Oh my
for the
God!
Mavericks. So
I was wondering if anybody was going to mention the fact that they had Felton. I know Bob knows all about him. Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that he cannot start his 4-game suspension until he's healthy because he hurt his ankle beginning of October in a preseason game. So instead of allowing him to miss the first 4 games, he has to pass all of his tests and be considered 100% healthy before he can go on his suspension.
He hurt his ankle in a preseason game, but he furthered the injury, reaching for the Twinkies on the top shelf in his kitchen.
Well, that's how he hurt his ankle.
Okay.
I still
in the first place.
Yeah.
I still maintain that his career was completely screwed up because of that first Carmelo Anthony trade. I mean, he was never the same after that. Him and Maury were a good 1-2 combination for the Knicks at the beginning of that season. And then after that trade, those two's career just plummeted after that.
He's also the type. Oh, I apologize, sir.
No, go ahead, Jabari. You got it.
Well, no, I just finishing that, piggybacking on that point. He's also the type player that definitely benefited from Mike D'Antoni's system. Once Mike D'Antoni was no longer there, and I agree, Melo's presence, probably contributed to both of those. But once Mike D'Antoni wasn't there, and that system wasn't there, Raymond Felton was no longer going to be, nearly as effective.
Yeah, the Mavericks with Jameer Nelson and Monte Ellis, with Devin Harris coming off the bench, and veterans like Richard Jefferson on the bench too. Not that he's going to be a major contributor, but he's an older presence, what you would like to hope would be a level head. I think that the X factor on this team is really Jameer Nelson, whether or not you think he can be a difference-making point guard or not.
Well, Richard Jefferson could be the Ray Allen of this team.
Yeah, he doesn't shoot that well, though.
He's always he's had a good shot.
Not like Ray Allen, though.
No, not like Ray Allen. I mean, there's been few players in NBA history have a shot like Ray Allen, but Richard Jefferson, he's made some clutch shots in his career. He could be that guy that comes in and hit that three that they need. I mean, I'm not expecting to have some of the heroics like we saw a couple years ago from Ray, but...
Well, and Richard Jefferson replacing Vince Carter on this team, Richard Jefferson still wants revenge after losing that dunk contest to Vince Carter in that commercial like 15 years ago.
Really? That's
really, yeah, I don't know if you guys watched a lot of Utah Jazz basketball last year, and don't worry, I'm not going to hold it against you if you didn't. I did. Richard Jefferson was actually pretty good, and I actually thought it was a really good pickup, for them. I don't know, like how it's going to be in terms of, quote unquote, replacing Vince Carter, but if I'm not mistaken, he was up over 40% from beyond the arc last year, and I know he shot over 3.5 of them. So, obviously he's a guy with some better, that has, the veteran know-how. He's a guy that can spread the court for him even further. Just leave it to them to have, 5 or 6 different, dead-eye shooters, especially from deep. I'm not necessarily predicting a repeat of 2011, but if you really look at the way that roster is, is built up, and I do realize some of these guys are older, but if you look at kind of how the roster is comprised, it looks an awful lot like that 2011 team.
Yeah.
Does Mark Eaton still play for Utah?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd ask.
And let's not forget for Dallas, Al Farouk Aminu, which makes me think of if it ain't Farouk, don't fix it.
Oh my God. But I was going to ask you to say the name again, but I don't want to hear another glib remark.
Thanks, appreciate it. So my prediction for this division, I think it's going to be San Antonio, and then Memphis, and then Dallas, then New Orleans, or then Houston, then New Orleans. I agree with Bob. I don't like Houston. I don't like the way they interact. I don't like the way they do it. I don't like the way they play ball. And I think Kevin
sounds like a bitter Laker fan.
It might be. And I think Kevin McHale's the first coach fired. There you go. Bam! I said it.
Oh, I also agree with that. I've said that. I thought he was going to get fired last year.
Yeah. Bam! There. Me and Jabari versus the world.
God, you are a bitter Laker fan.
No, you know what?
You're against Dwight Howard and Kevin McHale? That's 20 years ago.
We could do a whole show on this topic right now. So Jabari's time is valuable, so we're going to move on to the Northwest Division. Denver, Minnesota, Portland, Oklahoma City, and Utah. There are some, most notably Andrew Bailey from Bleacher Report, who is very high on Dante Exum, the Utah Jazz. Jabari, what's your take on the Jazz this year?
I'm intrigued by Exum. I'm intrigued by Utah. They got a lot of young talent. I'm a fan of Quinn Snyder as a first year coach. I actually wanted the Lakers to take a look at him. When they seemingly were waiting month upon month in order to finally find their guy. But I kind of like what they're building there. I'm not as high on Exum as others are, and that's not because I don't have anything against the young man. It's just a matter of I'm more of I need to see it. I need to see exactly what you got. And I don't care about a YouTube, highlight package. Those are all nice. Hey, I might look all right on a YouTube highlight package. I